Welcome to Face the State. I'm Ariana Bennett. Thank you for joining us. Well, Reno's economy is rebounding with new businesses opening up and lots of new people moving in. It's sure a far cry from just a few years ago when we had shuttered storefronts and short sales on every corner. But the boom is taxing our core services and wreaking some havoc in the housing market. So, how will city leaders manage this growth? Reno City Council member David Bobzien is here now to talk about that. David, thank you for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so after the State of the City address we just had, I spoke with a bunch of different city leaders, and pretty much every single one of them said their number one concern moving into 2017 is managing the growth.
Yeah.
Is that how you feel?
Yeah, I think that is a vision that's frankly shared throughout the valley with all the local governments, not just the Reno City Council. So there's a number of activities going on to address that. The big one for Reno is our Reimagine Reno process, which is the update of our city master plan. And so we've gone through phase one, which was collecting a lot of public input about what people want to see for their community. We had over 6,000 respondents, whether it was people filling out surveys, coming to listening sessions, et cetera. And the top three things that came out of that effort was that people see Reno as, number one, a place, a hub for outdoor recreation, which I thought was fantastic. That's kind of what I said. But number two is that, Reno is a place for arts and culture. And then number three, the vision of the city as a university town, as a place for innovation and the innovative economy. And so after we've gone through the vision part of it, now we're actually in the nuts and bolts of looking at land use, looking at corridors, looking at the individual communities in our city and what questions we need to ask and need to be answered about how to chart the growth according to that vision into the future.
Right. How much growth are you expecting?
Well, the EPIC report from EDON put out that we're looking at, depending on which projection you take, it's generally about 50,000 new residents in the region over the next 4 years.
Wow.
So that's a lot. That's a lot of growth. I mean, I think as you mentioned at the outset, we're so used to some rough times, and now we're clearly roaring back, and people want to come to Reno. So yeah, the growth is coming at us.
Yeah, it's great to see, definitely. You can already tell a little bit, even just like driving on the freeway, for example. Right. I laugh because I'm used to being able to get everywhere in this town in 10 minutes or less.
Yeah.
And it's not really the case anymore. Now you actually have to plan for some traffic congestion. But right. I guess in that same vein, what are the biggest concerns, the number one thing or a few things that are affected when we have an influx of people like this?
Well, certainly infrastructure demands are top of mind. We just went through this with the schools last fall, and so thankfully the school district is in a better place to meet the capacity challenges that they're facing. But certainly roads, as you mentioned, wastewater treatment is an issue for us. But also, and this gets back to the master plan, what should be the land use going forward? People certainly are concerned about the community not losing its character. I mean, we are the biggest little city, and hopefully we're going to hang on to that. But what do we do? What are the strategies that we employed for the land use? So it's the housing types that people want. We're definitely seeing a market trend towards more dense units, infill development, and so you're going to see choices made in the plan, I think, in the coming months that put an emphasis on infill development over sprawl, higher density, but then also more employment lands, understanding that we're going to have lands available for construction, for innovation, light manufacturing, et cetera.
Okay, so for those who are not familiar with this process, maybe just give a little primer on what the master plan is.
So the master plan is sort of the roll-up vision document for what our city should be going forward. And it provides cues to the market, to developers, as to what sort of projects will be valued. Now, underneath the master plan, you get down to the actual zoning designations and the maps, and which lands are set for residential, which lands are set for commercial. And so you're going to see some changes to zoning, particularly for areas that haven't been developed yet. One thing that we've noticed is that there needs to be more clarity about employment lands. We have a lot of lands, particularly up in the North Valleys, that are just kind of left out there as multi-use, which leaves it wide open and is not very helpful for communities, for neighbors, for developers. So we're looking for greater certainty in those land use designations that, again, set a clear vision for how we're going to grow.
Okay, and now I know the city does have control, obviously, of that zoning, where you want residential areas to be, where you want commercial areas to be, that sort of thing. But once it passes from the zoning phase into the development phase, is that kind of where the city's jurisdiction ends, or do you have the ability to dictate what gets built in those areas?
No, there's still flexibility. Certainly, projects depending on what piece of the planning code they're dealing with still have to come to the city, whether it's the Planning Commission or the City Council sometimes, based on if they need a variance on something or if sometimes the use requires a special use permit. So there still is that control and that interface with city government as developments go forward. We've certainly seen an uptick in activity, which is a good thing. So, the meetings have gotten longer for a lot of us in government, but it's exciting. I mean, these are good problems to have.
I guess what I'm asking more is, for example, we know housing availability is an issue. It's going beyond the level of affordability for many northern Nevadans, and kind of pricing them out of the market. So they're moving out of the city proper to the smaller communities outside. So that being said, if you've zoned an area residential and a developer comes in and wants to develop it, do you have any say over what that developer does? Can you say, we want you to build X number of affordable units on top of whatever else you have planned, or can you not dictate that at all?
Yeah, the ability to dictate is pretty limited. I mean, we still have private property rights, and developers have a certain set of rights that they come to the table with. That said, and this is going to come out of a lot of this planning, looking at ways to incentivize the types of developments that we want. So again, to the infill development, to the higher density pieces, it's difficult at times to do these smaller scale inside the city type developments where you're taking, say, brownfield areas or whatever. You have to deal with the infrastructure that may be deficient, that needs to be brought up to speed. The Park Lane property is a perfect example of this. So finding ways that the city can partner with these developers to get the sort of developments that we want to see. So the hope is that people are not priced out of living downtown, that there are newer developments, higher density, but we are maintaining a thriving downtown that has residents.
How do you incentivize someone to build lower price housing, though, when they know they can sell at a higher price?
Well, that is a piece of it, and we are working with a broader coalition of affordable housing interests, whether it's the federal government, whether it's banking, whether it's certain developers, finding funds from the federal government, community development block grant funds, also looking at mechanisms that the state may be able to provide us, but then again, looking for incentives that we can put together. Maybe it's, can we have your sewer fees maybe collected later in your development process than right at the outset, so that you have more cash immediately to put into the project and get it going. And so, if we do that, then the question becomes, okay, well, what is your responsibility as a developer then to provide some of these units at a reduced rate so that we have a broad mix? I mean, I think you do see the literature and the movement toward, rather than saying, okay, this area over here is going to be all affordable, is mixing and matching those housing types and those income types across all of our communities. That builds for a more livable city.
Absolutely, yeah. That's shown in most successful cities, that instead of having pockets of affluent areas and less affluent areas, they're all mixed together. And that's something that I think, I've heard when I spoke with Chip Bowlby with the Park Lane development, and also with the people from the West 2nd District. That was their proposal, but then they can propose that and not follow through with it, right?
Sure.
It's a problem.
Yeah.
Speaking of the West 2nd, is that happening, the West 2nd District?
They're still working away, as I understand it. We may be getting an update soon. They have some of the land assembled. They're still working on the project, but we'll see in the year to come.
That would be a big change for downtown.
It would be. I mean, it would dramatically change the skyline. It would definitely change the housing stock that's available right there downtown. It could be exciting, but we have a lot of developers that are looking at a lot of different projects, and so hopefully we'll see some of them go.
Yeah, I know, eliminating blight is a big priority for you guys. It was mentioned during the State of the City. What else do you want to see happen in downtown?
Well, there's a lot of discussion about what we can do to activate the downtown core. You may recall that we have a number of city-owned facilities downtown. Right, wrong, or indifferent, we own these things. We have the bowling stadium, we have the event center, we have the ballroom. We are in discussion with a developer that's looking to bring a minor league hockey team to downtown Reno. And it's exciting that the hockey team is coming, but the real story is the fact that this partner would enter into an agreement where they would manage the event center, which currently is an underutilized asset. There's only so many nights a year that there's something going on there, whether it's a conference or a concert, whether it's a basketball game. So the idea would be that we could step away in terms of our responsibility to run the thing. It would still be our facility, we'd still be protected that way, but somebody else could really turn it on, generate a lot of activity, and the hope is that with more people coming down on a routine basis in downtown, you start to see economic activity kind of radiate out from there.
Yeah. What about the Virginia Street corridor? I know there's a lot of plans underway to kind of rehab the Midtown area there.
Right,
What do you
right.
want to see happen there?
Well, that was definitely a contentious design process that RTC went through. They're still looking at those plans and hopefully moving forward. It said a lot that so many people were very interested in it and all had a vision. And it's very difficult to get everyone on the same page as to what you want, but I think across the board, people want a more walkable, enjoyable, aesthetically pleasing corridor there, and there's so much you can do with the sidewalks, the streetscapes, and everything else. So I'm hopeful that we're still a little ways out until they break ground on that, but that's another exciting project in the mix that's really going to liven up downtown and midtown.
When do you think that could start happening? What's the timeline?
My understanding is that prep stuff toward the end of this year, I think. So a little ways out yet, and it's not clear to me because RTC is looking again at some of their designs if that timeline has shifted or not. That's a good question for RTC.
Yeah. Still, though, within our conceivable future,
Oh, yes.
what about our roads? I know the Spaghetti Bowl is an identified issue. Anyone who drives it knows.
Yes.
But they are talking about fixing it.
Yes.
Do you think this is going to become more pressing, more people we get here, something that's going to be kind of pushed faster?
Well, certainly we're appreciative that the governor identified the project and the need in his State of the State address. So we'll have to see with the legislature coming to town what funds are allocated for that, but it's definitely a need to take a look at the Spaghetti Bowl and look at capacity. There's also, though, it's a delicate balance because even though we're certainly all seeing more traffic and certainly going through the Spaghetti Bowl, we're all experiencing it, and the backups are there. We also have to keep in mind that we've got changing technologies here. We're going to start seeing self-driving cars just around the bend. At the same time, we are having challenges with ozone attainment, the air pollution. You are starting to see that. So transit, getting people around in this community, making sure that people can get to work, can get to their homes. These are all big challenges that we're facing as a community.
Do you see us moving to a completely different system, like maybe a light rail or something like that, instead of Reno's been traditionally a driving city,
Yeah, I mean, I think the single passenger vehicle is going to be here for a while to stay, but certainly, we've made steps to do more bike-friendly development as well. We are looking right now at the city at doing a bike share program of some sort, possibly partnering with the university and piloting that on a small, limited basis for now, just kind of downtown, midtown, up to the university. Transit has always been a challenge for us with our buses. We are at this kind of weird place with our density. We're a fairly spread out city that it's hard for those routes to be maintained in a financially viable way because of our geography, but all those things come together as a system to move people around.
Yeah, I think there's definitely some desire for that, at least some different options. As the city grows, people are less interested in having the single passenger vehicle, maybe more interested in other options. Okay, finally, before we have to go to break, I do want to ask about plans for the homeless shelter and homeless services. I know the city had partnered with the county to kind of consolidate this. Where do we stand on that now?
Well, we've actually made some big strides. We have the 3 local governments in the valley, Sparks, Reno, and Washoe County, partnered together in operating the Community Assistance Center, which is the homeless shelter on Record Street. Last year, the Transitional Governing Board, myself, Mayor Martini, Commissioner Jung, approved a pretty big jump up in funding for homeless services. And the story there was not so much that we were increasing funding, but we were also making that funding more effective, a greater emphasis on wraparound services, entry points to drug and alcohol counseling, mental health, et cetera, that Volunteers of America, our partner that operates the shelter, they now have to do all those things. At the same time, we put aside money for an overflow shelter as well. So we're looking for how we place that and program that, and so that we're not just putting a roof over people's heads when they need it, but we're also making sure that there's services that are part of that as well, so that people can get out of the situation that they're in.
Okay, well that is a perfect point for us to take a break. Coming up on Face the State, though, I'll be back with David Bobzien to discuss efforts to make Reno more green. That's right after the break.